And now for this Thursday, February 17th, live and local, this is CTV News at 6. Tonight, the Wright way, a final sign-off for a broadcasting icon.
This is also where our assignment comes to an end.
Live from our Maritime News Center, this is CTV News. Here is Steve Murphy.
Hello again, everyone. We have lost a very good friend today. Dave Wright died this morning in Barrie, Ontario at the age of 82. Dave created Live at 5 and he anchored this broadcast. But Dave Wright was a lot more than an anchor and a reporter. He was an innovator. Here is CTV's Rick Grant.
We called him Boomer. Dave Wright was TV news in Atlantic Canada, bigger than life.
Television was made for the Boomer. They both were like that.
Bill Jessam himself is a giant in maritime broadcasting, and the two were close friends right to the end. It started about 1981 when Jessam was based in Cape Breton and did a report on then Finance Minister Alan McEachran.
He called me right after and he said, "I want you up in Halifax." I said, "No. When the Boomer says he wants something."
So Jessam did end up in Halifax. The two did have words, though, over one story lead.
I remember one time I wrote a lead for him, some story, and I said, "It's gone the way of the dodo bird." He read it, "It's gone the way of the doo-doo bird." That's the first time we had a big argument. I said, "Boomer, a grade 4 student knows what the difference."
Dave came to Halifax years earlier to host an open line show on CJCH radio and came over to television as an experiment, hosting Dave Wright's Notebook.
And that was so very successful, even up against the American programming, that we expanded that program into what you now know as Live at 5. And
Dave was considered an innovator in television.
the concept of Live at 5 was mirrored by many stations across Canada. That program, when it went 90 minutes, was the first 90-minute newscast in Canada.
Dave had style. He wouldn't be tied to a desk in the newsroom. He considered the Maritimes his neighborhood, but he had to chase stories beyond.
David liked to globetrot. He would want to travel around the world, and that was always a chore to keep him here local, but at the same time do stories that had a local vent that could be extrapolated around the world, whether it was him visiting Rome and being introduced to the Pope.
And he did, the royal wedding of Charles and Diana. He anchored a broadcast aboard a Canadian Navy vessel from the Suez Canal. He was in Berlin for the fall of the Berlin Wall. Pat Kennedy was his cameraman.
He was an experienced traveler. I mean, he always knew how to hit the ground running. I think one of the infamous cliches was people are the same all the way around the world.
No one knows a reporter better than a cameraman.
It was everything me as a young guy could do to keep up to him. I mean, I don't know how much he slept, but he didn't sleep a lot, so he was always organizing, always planning as to how the day was going to go and what was a good element to put in the news for that night.
Dave was so successful in the Maritimes that the CBS affiliate in Boston hired him in the summer of 1986. But he returned to ATV in the fall of 1988. An announcement remembered by Nancy Reagan, who had just started with ATV that summer and was on the threshold of becoming the Live at 5 co-host.
And they said, "Here's our new 6 o'clock anchor." And in he walked, and the place went crazy. And at the time, I didn't have full context for why people reacted like they did. They loved him.
The two became fast friends, and he took her under his wing. She remembered a workhorse in the newsroom.
He would work for several hours on his computer at home, and he was way ahead of the curve on the computer. And then you'd come into the newsroom and start fresh with us.
Everybody at CTV who worked with Dave Wright has a fond memory of him.
I think of Boomer, and I think of a lot of good times on the road. We spent a lot of time, Boomer and his wife Audrey, salt of the earth people, salt of the earth.
There are so many stories about Dave Wright, but all who worked with him remember that Dave only ever wanted the best newscast and was thrilled when a reporter or cameraman or colleague scored big. Not a selfish bone in him. He will be missed. He was the best. The Boomer was silenced today. Dave Wright died in Barrie, Ontario, of leukemia. He was 82.
Dave's family in Barrie says they have been overwhelmed by the support they've received from people around here. Gord Wright spoke with CTV today about how he hopes his dad will be remembered.
I think one of my fondest memories and my proudest moment of my father was during my first visit to Halifax. And when I finally realized how successful he had become and just how many people's lives he touched out there, from the Ethiopia Adoptive Village to his charity work around town. Everywhere I went in the Maritimes, people would tell me how wonderful my father was, and it was heartwarming to see that from everyone. I'd like my dad to be remembered as a hard-working professional, more importantly as an incredible father, wonderful husband, and just an amazing man that a lot of people really loved. He was incredible. He's going to be sorely missed.
And tributes have been coming in today for Dave, including this one from the Premier of Nova Scotia, Darrell Dexter, who says, in part, Mr. Wright was a fine man and a great television host, and it is a sad day for anyone who was fortunate enough to have worked with or known Mr. Wright. And from the Minister of National Defence, Peter MacKay, today, this. Nova Scotians and Atlantic Canadians came to rely on his newscasts to learn about and make sense of the events impacting their lives and the lives of others. It was his vision that laid the groundwork for Live at 5 to become the phenomenal success it is today, and I'm confident his trademark style inspired a new generation of journalists. And if you'll permit me, for many of us here, the passing of Dave is both a professional and a personal loss, and I'll have a few words of reflection on Dave Wright later in our program. But Dave Wright laid the foundation on which CTV News is built. He was a creator and a mentor and a teacher and a friend, and many of us here owe him a huge personal debt of gratitude as well. And so it is recorded. Thanks, Boomer.
CTV News.